Okay, again, welcome to Purpose of this book with David and David. And we are picking up on page 85, first full paragraph. It's easy to let up, but David, I don't know. Do you want to recap anything? How we got to this point?
No, no. I mean, just so you guys know what we did, we're in the 10th step here, and the 2 weeks ago we did the 10-step disciplines. We talked about that. Last week we got to go over those great 10-step promises. The 10th step is telling us sanity's been restored. I've been given the miracle of a changed attitude towards alcohol. The problem's been removed. Warning about staying in fit spiritual condition is coming, or it came last week, and the tools on how to stay in fit spiritual condition will be talked about tonight. And now I can trust my will. We'll find out about that and how we align our will with God's. So that's coming too.
Okay. So 85, first full paragraph. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. I'm going to reread those two sentences before we move on here. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Abby, what you got?
I've I've got a few. I have laurel, which is good things I've done in the past. Foe, which is enemy. Contingent, which is dependent or conditional. And reprieve, which is to give temporary relief to.
Thank you. Just started, David, please.
Okay. So we started up by, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. In the context of the word easy, in this context anyways, easy is only used twice in the book. It's used a few times in the book. So if you want to go back and find out to correct me, you can. It is used in different portions of the book, but not in this context. In this context, it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. And back on page 42 is the other time that they list that in the second paragraph. But it is easy to let up a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. So want to know, at least in my experience, what happens to old timers is they rested on their laurels and they went back out and they drank again. 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, because it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. We're going to find out in this paragraph how important it is to stay in action, always staying in action, just like that clock. Keep the battery in and keep it going all the time. And we talk about rest on our laurels. So laurels is something you would wear, the Romans would wear around their head after they won an event, an Olympic event, or any kind of an event. It comes from a laurel tree, and you walk around with that thing for a week around your head or 2 weeks around your head. And it's a celebration of something that you accomplished. Well, we have a daily reprieve here. We don't get to celebrate something that I did necessarily yesterday, because this is a one day at a time program here. I gotta stay in steps 10, 11, and 12 all day long. This is where I live. And then it says we're headed for trouble. So here's the warning. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of actions and rest on our laurels, the things that I accomplished yesterday. And we are headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol is a subtle foe. So I got to remember that what I did yesterday, what I ate last week is not going to nourish me today, right? Think about that. And the same thing holds true here. What I did yesterday in Alcoholics Anonymous, working with others, whatever I did, some kind of service work, and I worked all 12 steps. I did the triangle check-in with my sponsor. We could elaborate on that at another time. And the reason why is we're not cured of alcoholism. But people get really confused in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous saying about recovered, recovering, cured. This is a statement in the book that says we're not cured. We are not cured. We're not. There is no cure for this. But I have a recovered state of mind and body and spirit today. And how do I say recover from that? A daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, which it says what we really have. It answers the question. So we're not cured of alcoholism. This is the answer. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. That talks about, to me, that is spiritual growth. I got to continue to grow in the understanding and effectiveness of God's will for me all day long. So I'm awake, I'm not asleep, dreaming I'm awake anymore. I am aware of this power. Matter of fact, he's available to me 24/7. I'm not blocked by pomp or circumstance any longer. I've cleaned up all the wreckage from my past. I'm living in the moment. I have the 10-step disciplines in my life that I can practice the what at, the acronym for watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn that we learned in the 10-step disciplines on page 84 in the second paragraph. And then the next sentence says every day. So I have highlighted this because, again, this is him just reinforcing, again, the jackhammer approach too, by the way. Every day is a day. We must, and there's one of those musts, carry the vision of God's will into, and I circled this, all our activities. My life is not segmented in different ways. Was it at one time or another? You bet your butt. I was a great Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous member early in my sobriety. But I would go home, and if she looked at me the wrong way, if traffic got messed me up on the way home, or if I had to stop and get milk and the line was too long, man, my spiritual condition was out the window. What happened between that time I left that meeting and the time I got home? Well, my will showed up. A lot of times you hear people say, "Oh, I'm having a bad day." No, I'm having a selfish day. That's what I'm having. I'm not having a bad day. I'm having a selfish day. And I had a selfish ride on the way home, and I got pissed off about something. But today my life isn't segmented in that way. I don't, just because I get to have a career, I get to have a family, I get to have Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous in my life. I get to have a lot of friends. I get to have a couple bucks in my pocket today. It's not segmented in different ways. It doesn't affect me. Those are all external things. This is an internal disease with an internal solution. I'm connected to power. Power is flowing in. We're going to talk about that very soon here too. Then this is a reinstatement of the third step decision that we made back on page 63. This is our 10-step prayer too, by the way. How can I best serve thee? Thy will and not mine be done. In parentheses, not my will. He's emphasizing and re-emphasizing how important it is to stay connected to this power here. And these are the thoughts. So I can't control my thoughts, but these are the thoughts that must, again, another must. So circle that or highlight it, whatever you want to do. Go with us constantly. David, how often is constantly? It's all day long. When is constantly?
I'd love someone to be able to answer that, right?
I know. It's all, and then the last sentence there is we can exercise our will, just like if I go to the gym. I go to the gym to get stronger. I'm exercising my will to get stronger with my faith, right? So to have faith, all men of faith are men of courage. I had to take some courage. I had to take courage to make that first approach in my 9th step, to make that appointment, to sit down with that person. And once I made my approach, and then I made my appointment through courage, then faith kicked in, because I knew from that point on, all I had to do was make my approach, then make my appointment. And now I have faith that this 9-step process is going to work for me. Same thing happens here. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is finally, I know what is the proper use of the will.
So David brought up the word easy here, right? It's such a tricky word for us. And so I looked up in my little online version here exactly how many times in the first 164 pages the word easy comes up and how it's used. So I got one, you guys, I know you love taking some of these notes like this, guys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times the word easy appears in the first 164. But there's only 2 spots where it talks about how something is easy, as David mentioned. So one of them's right here. It says it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. The other one is in how it works on page 68. And I'm just going to go there real quick. Now about sex. It's probably not what you think when easy's coming into play here. many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. So in both these cases, Bill is saying how we think and feel and behave and react as our old selves. It's very easy to fall back into it. If you've got if you have a concordance that's got all the references to the words, or if you got like the Kindle version, and you can search by it, it's actually fascinating, guys, how many of these, how almost every time the word easy is used is a really important part in the book, right? So like in Bill's story, he just going to give you a couple examples here because I think the context is fun. Talks about outlining the spiritual program of action. It meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out of the window. That was not easy, right? Or in We Agnostics on 44, this is such a great one. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Such a powerful word and how it's used in the book. And I won't go through the other 9, but have fun looking those up and looking at all those. I think you're going to find they are all parts of really compelling sentences or paragraphs that get called out a lot when we're talking about the book. So, I'm sure I'm going to sort of repeat a lot of the things that David said, and I think it's okay because this is another powerful paragraph and it's worth us really, doubling down on some of these concepts. So it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I get good. I come in looking to have my needs met. I come in looking to stop drinking or drugging or compulsively eating or cutting or whatever my problem is. And I stopped doing that because you guys helped me. You helped me get to God a little bit. And I'm like, things are better. Like David said, I'm back in the house. I'm back in the bed. I'm back on the job. I actually have a positive amount in my checking account, right? All this stuff is better. So maybe I can just do this instead of, maybe I don't need to reach out to that newcomer. Maybe I don't need to go to that meeting. Maybe I'd rather stay home and watch Netflix. Maybe I'd, right? Very easy to do this. And David talked about it. Sadly, we've seen a lot of people who've been around a long time, at least physically dry. I don't know if they were truly recovered, but go back out because they let up in the spiritual program of action, or maybe even took it on. I was just listening to Myers R. I'm sure you guys all know Myers. He's got a new talk out on Mad Dog, and he's given his great story that I've heard him give so many times. And he was talking about if AA Light works for you, God bless. Work AA Light. Just please don't come into AA meetings and teach it, right? That's where we run into problems. I've shared that my dad, 81 years old, is in now I think his 4th month of recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Is incredible, right? He just came in. He doesn't have a history of in and out. He literally came in at 80 years old. And so I'm getting through his filter all the things that a newcomer hears at meetings, and a lot of really charismatic, good talkers. And he doesn't know what's right and what's wrong. And I'm keeping my mouth shut because it's my dad, except when he tells me something that I know is really out of bounds. And I'm like, Dad, you know what? If that works for you, that's cool. But please don't repeat that in a meeting, right? Because there's going to be someone sicker than you that AA Light is not good enough. They need the fully leaded Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, whatever it is. They need it out of the book like I did and do. Right? I can't get into this easy. And then I repeated this twice when I read it. We are not cured of alcoholism. And people get bent out of shape sometimes. We talk about recovered versus cured. I'm not cured. Here's the perfect example. You guys have probably heard, if you've been studying with this, you hear me talk about this. I have another chronic illness. I have type 2 diabetes, right? But because I've lost a bunch of weight and because my eating's pretty good, I can't say it's perfect, right? And I take a bunch of medicine and I try to stay active, my diabetes is in control. Am I cured of diabetes? No, I still have diabetes. But am I recovered from it? Are my numbers where my doctor wants them to be? Yeah, same thing, guys. Not cured. The alcoholism, the addiction doesn't go away. But my head, my heart, and my gut are all healthy. That's what we're talking about. We do recover. Go back anytime. If anybody gets pissy about this, I love my sponsor is like one of these guys. He will go to meetings and he will listen to people talk crazy and crazy. He drives me nuts because he'll just look at me with a big grin ear to ear when people are talking crazy, and I'm fuming because I want him to talk the way I want him to talk, and my sponsor thinks it's hysterical. But then when he hears him say something opposite to the book, he goes, takes him aside one-on-one out of earshot of everybody else and says, here's what our book says. And you know what our book says, guys, on the title page? The story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. Am I cured? No. Am I recovered? Yes. Am I constantly recovering? No. I am recovered, same as my diabetes. If my diabetes gets out of whack again, then it could be argued I'm going to be back in a recovering state until I can get it stable again. Just like my alcoholism, guys. Recovered. Not cured. What I have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Why? Why? Because if you're this far in the book and someone's been helping you to understand it, or you've been in studies like this, you couldn't have missed the point here. The point is that my real problem is I'm spiritually ill. I have a spiritual malady. My life is unmanageable. Yes, the alcohol, in my case, the alcohol and the other drugs drove me into 12-step recovery. There is no question. The fact that I'm powerless over alcohol and cocaine and many other things is what makes me eligible to be in a fellowship, right? According to those third traditions in the respective fellowships. What makes me eligible for the solution, the only solution we have, the spiritual awakening, is the fact that I'm spiritually ill. If I wasn't spiritually ill, I wouldn't need a spiritual solution, right? If my problem was just that I'm physically powerless, I just don't drink. Right? Think about that. We know people, maybe we don't all, I know people who used to drink too much and they had consequences and like, don't drink anymore. Right? I run into those people, and we run into a lot of them in AA meetings for sure. A lot of hard drinkers. There's no question. And that's okay. Again, everybody's welcome. But please don't speak up and talk about how you've been around 30 years and never done a fourth step, because you're going to kill somebody, right? Some of us are sicker than others. Like I said, I need the fully leaded AA experience. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. Why? Because this is the whole point. I got to be a maximum service to God and the people about me. This is why I was chosen. This is why God gave me the opportunity to save my tail. I truly believe this, right? When I am running the show, when every day I carry my vision and my will into all my activities, I'm beaten, busted, and broken, right? That's how I ended up here. My will, my vision, limited, weak. God's is infinite and altruistic and all-powerful, omnipotent, right? How can I best serve thee? That will not mine be done. Beautiful little one-sentence prayer. I think David talked about that, so I won't hammer that too much more. But these are the thoughts which must go with us constantly. And David asked the question, what is the frequency of constant? If I look at the clock, I look at the watch, my wristwatch, how can I track constantly? See how that little, what is that, the second hand or the third hand, I guess, it ticks off to 60 seconds. Every time I see it tick, that's constantly. What if this said, these are thoughts which must go with me sometimes, occasionally, rarely. No, doesn't work that way. If you're like me, and I guarantee you are, I need black and white. I don't do so well trying to be balanced and moderate. That's my goal. By the time I die, I'm going to be the most balanced and moderate person on this planet. But it's going to happen exactly 5 seconds before I take my last breath, because I'm going to be working towards it the rest of my life. So until that time, as the clock winds and as the sands go through the hourglass, I have to constantly take these thoughts with me. How can I help you, God? How can I help your kids? And then this last part, I can exercise my willpower. So finally, I'm being told, oh, wait a minute, willpower might work. How, though? What is the area which I can effectively effectuate willpower? It's to do God's will. It's keeping me focused and centered on my new primary purpose. Serve God and serve his kids. You want to double back? I know you do.
Yeah, I do want to double back, but before we do that, we're honored tonight to have our ICU nurse Ashton here, and if you don't
Oh,
mind coming on, Ashton, she has got a couple of medical definitions that this group likes to
ooh.
do. So come on in, Ashton,
Wait,
please.
hold on, Ash. I think I gotta
Okay,
designate you. One sec here.
I should have gave you a heads up, David. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Just take me a sec here.
There.
Okay, come on in now,
Hello,
Ash.
thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back here again. It's been a minute. Yeah, I mean, David did a great job of explaining this, but I just wanted to give the definitions of recovered and cured. So
Mm,
recovered involves when a treatment causes you to become well and healthy again. And cured means when a treatment removes a health issue and it's not expected to return. And as David explains, and with the metaphor of diabetes, alcoholism, it's always going to be here. It's a disease and we're always going to have it. There's no way for us to be cured about it. And that's why we have to work on our recovery to work on getting towards being recovered. And that's all I got, guys.
thanks, Ash.
Well done. Thank you, Ash.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So think about that. Then go right back to because the recovered part or the cured part is just like it starts in the beginning. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action, rest on our laurels. So the old timer that comes in, it doesn't do any work or stops doing the work all the way, stops working with other people. And what I find out is they don't do that. And because when they come back to meetings, I say, hey, do you have any sponsees I can help with? And, let me, work with them while you're recovering here. And then you can have them back. And you're like, well, I don't really have any sponsees I was working with currently. I'm like, says a lot. I need to be useful. I need to be helpful. I need to be practicing these principles in all my affairs, carrying this message. But the point of that whole thing is my disease is running parallel with me. This disease, not cured from it, recovered, parallel. And if I go back in that lane, I could jump back in that lane again. My alcoholism will grab me. It will. This is why, and it says, to me anyways, Bill talks about in that prior sentence, that this is how we act so long we stay in fit spiritual condition. This is a warning. This warning is that this is the condition, from this point that Bill's telling us and how we stay in fit spiritual condition. This is the directions on how I stay in fit spiritual condition because he gave us a warning. He's talking about it here right now. And what if I don't do anything for my daily reprieve? What if I don't do anything? Well, common sense tells me that I may not have a daily reprieve then. Dude, that's a scary place for this guy to be because I know what untreated alcoholism looks like. I know exactly what it looks like. Fighting with my wife, having financial problems. None of the nice set promises are coming true. Guess where I'm at? I'm not on page 83 and 84, those observations of nice set promises. I am on page 52 again. I'm having problems with personal relationships. I'm prey to misery, depression. I'm not feeling useful. I am full of fear. All those things come right back quickly. I don't want those things back. So it's all about doing this 12-step work, which you're not going to get to. But the 10 steps allows me to live in today, right here, right now in this moment. So what I need to do something every day from fifth spiritual condition. We're going to get into prayer and meditation real quickly here pretty soon. That is part of my fifth spiritual condition. This is a routine that I'm in. Don't pat me on the back, and I don't do it because I'm superstitious, because I need to be close to power. I have never, ever missed a day of getting on my knees. And I get on my knees for one really important reason. Not because my God is an egomaniac, because I don't want to forget the fact that I'm humbled by the fact that God is in my life today. And he is my father, he's my director, and he's my principal, and he's my employer, and I am his agent. So I get on my knees each and every day, and ask him to direct my thinking and ask him who I could be a help to. How can I be a help to you, God, and all your kids? And man, I remember a guy telling me this in a meeting when I first got sober, and no one was running over to me to sponsor them. No one was running to me for any kind of assistance whatsoever. And he said, when you're spiritually fit, God will place people in your life. When you're not spiritually fit, not going to do that to those people. Boy, did that light a fire under my butt to do the rest of this work. And from that point on, I've been sponsoring people since I was 3 months sober. And again, don't pat me on the back. I'm doing this to save my own life, okay? And I pray that your life gets saved too, but I'm only the messenger. I am not in charge of the results. So I want this daily reprieve every day. That's all I got. Thank you.
David's the president of AA, just so everybody knows, right? So guys,
have a card.
Right?
No.
So what are we talking about here? If you were with us a couple of weeks ago when we did the opening paragraph on the 10th step, and we talked about, these spiritual disciplines of, watching and then asking, discussing, turning, or amending and turning, right? I made the point that in practicing the 10th step, we're really living in all three legacies, because when I screw up, not if, but when, I'm going to ask God. I have a relationship with God because of the recovery portion of our program. And then if I'm going to discuss it with someone, I'm in the unity portion. And then if I'm turning my thoughts to someone I can help, it's probably going to turn into help. I'm into service, right? So God, someone else, and service, unity, service, recovery is all of our legacies in action. And then if you come to the paragraph that we're talking about tonight, it's basically telling me, listen, it's easy for me to let up on living a life based on the three legacies. And I'm headed for trouble if I do. Every day skipping down is a day when I must carry the vision of God's will. So I got to work my recovery portion. How can I best serve these? Thy will, not mine, be done. What it's telling me is that I've got to stay in recovery. I got to take care of his kids, which is service. And because I got to interact with other people, I'm in unity. Is the unity always within my 12-step fellowship? No. I got to be a part of people. I got to be a part of life. I got to find out, what am I bringing to the party, not what am I taking from it, right? The 10th step is the ultimate perpetuation of all of these things: recovery, unity, service in action. The beautiful part of it. Anything else, or do you want to move on?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Next paragraph, guys. Second full paragraph on 85. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we've begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further. That means more action. Abby, anything?
I have conscience, which is aware, and vital, which is life-giving, life-sustaining.
Thank you.
Okay, so much has already been said about receiving strength and inspiration and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. So that started early in the book, even going back to Bill's story, but I'm not going to go back all that far. I'm going to go to page 62 of our book, and I already brought this up once tonight, but it always, one of my favorite pages of the book, in the third paragraph. It says here, this is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided, this is my decision, that hereafter in this drama of life, God is going to be our director. He is a principal. We are his agents. This is where I'm going to get my strength and inspiration from. To be our director, he's our principal. We are his agents. He is our father. We are his children. Most good ideas are simple, but this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch, through which we pass to freedom. So that's talking about strength there. And then it's also on page 79, I think it is too. I should have wrote a note down there. 79. Hold on. Sorry about this. Yep, page 79, first paragraph. When we're in the 9th step, we're talking about men's incidences of criminal offenses. First paragraph. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding, reminding ourselves that we have decided, again, a decision was made, to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience. That's another reminder. There's 3 of them in the book about reminding us that. We ask that we be given strength and direction. This is my prayer, to do the right thing. No matter what the personal consequences may be, we may lose our position, reputation, or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be, I have to, a must. We must not shrink at anything. So that we've been preparing for this all along. This was not available. It was available to me, but I wasn't ready for it. Just like I wasn't ready to do my 9th step when I walked in the doors the first day, even though that's the one I wanted to do first. I didn't have. God was going to give me the access to that as I worked the steps 1 into 2, 2 into 3. They're all linked together for a specific reason. And then it talks about direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. We just talked about it. Father, principal, director, employer. That's what He is. We have carefully followed directions. David and I been hammering this home for 5 tours through the book now. Honest and thorough. Honest and thorough. Just honest and thorough through the whole process here, right? A lot, and I'm going to go on. I'm going to jump on the horse here, right, real quick. Oh, David always says this about the 4th step, right? That is the celebration. Think about what the 4th step really is. It's about me writing about me, and the 5th step is about me talking about me, about things that I wrote about me, and then you're going to listen all about me. So this is perfect because it's all about me. It's like, what is the problem? We should be celebrating 4 and 5, because this is what I follow these directions. Don't leave anything off. I'm only as sick as my darkest secret. I need to do this. And then as this process of doing this honestly and thoroughly, we begun to sense of the flow of His capital letters, His Spirit into us. Through this whole process here, we're going to hear different directions, Spirit of the universe, and all these other things that Bill uses to describe God. But I'm walking hand in hand with God. And I heard a speaker talk about this the other day that I was listening to, Mad Dog or on WhatsApp or whatever. I'm hand in hand, right next to God. I don't want to be in front of Him. I don't want Him dragging me behind Him. Hand in hand, right alongside Him. He is directing me all day long. If I'm right next to Him, I can look over, I can see Him, I can feel it, I can observe it. I can have those 10-step disciplines in my life, so I can feel the flow of His Spirit into me. To some extent, we became God conscious. So this is going to tie right into the next sentence. We have begun to develop this vital 6th sense. This God consciousness is His vital 6th sense. It's not of the 5 senses that we're accustomed to. This is a spiritual sense. This is something that I will know right from wrong. I will know how to behave in any situation. Again, my life isn't segmented in different ways. The challenge is to practice these principles in all my affairs, the 3rd part of the 12th step. I will know how to do that. It just comes to me, just like my sobriety just comes to me automatically. Just talks about when we see that our new attitude toward liquors begin with without any thought or effort on our part, that happens automatically without me thinking about it. With a lot of practice here, I will have access and have available to me this power. And for me, I'm always constantly trying to think about God. I have a meeting tomorrow with a big business that I've been doing business with tomorrow, just to go over some stuff. So you know what I'll do right away? I do this every time I do anything. I don't care what it is. If I go to a meeting, if I do this before I go to a meeting, I get on my knees, I invite God in, and before I walk into that meeting, I'll be prepared like I always am, but I'm going to open the door and let God walk in first. I do much better that way because He's my Father, He's my employer, He's my director, and He's my principal, and I am His agent. I will have the right words. I will be well prepared. It'll be a professional business meeting like it always is, and the outcome's in God's hands. It's not in mine. It's okay. I'll be okay. I won't be full of fear. I have faith that this works because I've done it. I've taken the courageous steps all the time, inviting God in, letting you know what's going on here, practicing the disciplines of 10 and bringing them in. And my life doesn't even look like it did 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago. Every single time I go through this work with somebody else, I have another experience. I have another awakening every single time. And I do this a lot because I want to do this a lot. I love watching people recover. I love watching them getting their kids back in their life. I love watching them get that career, not just that job. I love them getting their driver's license back and then picking up somebody to take them to meetings. I love when they start sponsoring other people and they call me on the phone and say, "What do you think about this?" And I said, "I don't know. What did you do in that situation?" And we have these conversations. It's an amazing experience that you don't want to miss, watching these people grow up about you. And then it says, but we must go further. And that means, now I thought I was going to be able to coast. No more action, right?
Haven't we done enough? Right?
Bill's clear. And why would I be surprised? What chapter are we in? We're into action. So that's how I got there.
So starting off this paragraph, Much has already been said about receiving strength and inspiration and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. Well, when did Bill start talking about this? Pretty much back on page 44. So we're going on about 40 pages of this, ebbing and flowing a little bit, as so often we do. We remind how this book is set up and the way it's organized and how we get through it in a linear fashion. Those 10 pages of the doctor's opinion, and then pages 1 through 43 are really about the first half of the first step, the powerlessness. And then starting on page 44, we're really getting into lack of power, unmanageability, spiritual malady, and how I need to find some power greater than myself that's going to solve my problem, solve all my problems, really. And so, as we were in the 9th step promises a few weeks ago, I made the point that, we get into that lack of power starting at 45. We'll just call it 44, right? Beginning of We Agnostics. And really at that point, if you think about that chapter, guys, what is the point of that chapter? I mean, there are several points, but I characterize it as Bill is trying to sell us on the idea that we can have belief and we can have faith. I mean, it's really what he's talking about in this chapter. And so if I'm going to start to get into a new system of belief and faith, that begins the conversation about that there's something bigger than me that can guide me, right? That I can get strength and inspiration and direction from something larger than me, which I need because I can't achieve these things on my own. So from 44 to 84, I was starting to say those 9th step promises really culminate with these promises that I get from getting spiritually well, from getting spiritually healthy. And then we get these great 10th step promises that parlay how, because I'm now spiritually fit, I also don't have this problem with alcoholism anymore, right? That my mental obsession is lifted. And because my mental obsession is lifted, I don't put alcohol in my body. Therefore, I don't break out in craving. Physical powerlessness is still there. It just doesn't get triggered, right? So now he's going on to say, we spent the last 40 pages or so talking about how I'm going to get more out of my relationship with God. And the book's going on to say, if we've carefully followed directions, so again, David says this all the time, it's not a novel where I just read it and it's all, sort of fun ideas. As David says, it's a textbook. It's intended to be read and studied. The analogy I use is it's an instruction manual. It tells me the problem, solution, and how to get from the problem to the solution, right? So if I've been carefully reading and carefully following directions, I ought to have begun to sense the flow of my higher power spirit into me. If I do it all thoroughly and honestly, I'm going to start to get some freedom. I'm going to start to feel some of this flow. This is my personal experience, and it's been the experience of many people that I've met as I've been trudging along here. To some extent, not entirely, not wholly, but to some extent, partially, we have become God conscious. I now have some awareness of God. I've got an awareness that he's lurking around. He's in the back of my head here. He's in maybe the left ventricle of my heart. He's in my gut, hiding behind my belly button, right? God is now with me. I feel him in my psyche, right? I've begun to develop this vital 6th sense, which is my awareness of and my interaction with God. And I said God is hiding behind my belly button. That's not true. God's been living behind my belly button deep down inside of me my whole life. But again, I was obscuring him with calamity and pomp, like David said, and doing a nice job of pouring alcohol and cocaine on top of him, trying to dull him out as he was trying to save my life. But now I'm aware of him. Now, as I'm talking to God and God's talking back to me, we actually have a dialogue. And now God is starting to do something a little bit. He's starting to click that pause button on me, like the mute button on a remote control, right? In my marriage, I'm about to say click. With my business partners, I'm about to raise my voice, click. Pause, 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 pause. And God says to me, maybe there's another better way. But how do I get that even deeper? How do I get that even further? Well, more action. David said, title chapter, into action. So at this point in the chapter, subsection, into More action. Bottom paragraph on 85. Step 11. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. Well, there's the C word again. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Abby, do you have anything from this paragraph? Can you look up constantly and let us know what the dictionary says about constantly?
Yeah, we really don't know. We just don't.
I would like to know, how do you measure constantly? Good luck with that.
I'd like to know. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave. Get us started again, please.
Okay, so we're talking about prayer and meditation here. Talking and listening, I've heard it described that way. But let's go back into the book a little bit. In the Bill story, in the recovery portion on page 13. So he's going to give us a description of what prayer looks like and the direction and strength that he needs to go through the thing. So 13, fourth paragraph. And this is going to be directly related to this paragraph, the prior paragraph, and this one here. Bill's story, recovering. I was to test my thinking by this. We just talked about this new God consciousness within. Where is it at? Within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. So common sense, the uncommon sense I have is I think about me. Common sense today would be that I'm thinking about you first, right? Reverse order than the things were in the past, because I'm living in the world of spirit, not living in the world of self any longer. Self is dissipated for the moment, as long as I have the day of reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And then back to the text on page 13, fourth paragraph. Fourth paragraph. Here's the direction Bill gives us, what he does. I was to sit quietly, when in doubt, we're going to get to that, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. That's a pretty good definition of what I need to do when I'm sitting in prayer. Never rise to pray for myself, except as my request bore out my usefulness to others. Remember, the fifth bedevilment was uselessness. The fifth bedevilment was I was feeling useless. Here we are, recover state of mind and body. We're growing a God consciousness here. We have this vital sixth sense now. We're living in the world of the spirit. We have the 10-step disciplines. We're being introduced to the 11th step here today. And now we have this usefulness, the key to life, being of maximum service to God in the 9th step that we talk about, and all his kids. That's my prayer every day. How can I best serve thee, God, and all your kids? Excuse me. I'm sorry. And then it says, so I'm going to read that paragraph again and follow through it. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others, then only might I expect to receive. What am I going to receive? When we ask, we are given things in abundance. If you haven't experienced this before, I promise you, God gives things in abundance. We don't have time for me to go over all these things. I'll just give you one. He's 1 year old and he's my grandson. And we had him all day yesterday. Dude, it was unbelievable. And I got to work in the morning tomorrow. Poor me, only half a day. I own my own business, so I can do that. And I'm going to have him, my wife and I are going to have him the rest of the day. Abundance. Oh my goodness. And he's like taking steps now, right? And he takes balls and he throws them. And he takes his food and he throws it on the floor. And we don't care. We're loving him in abundance, the same way God loves us, in abundance. He gives us abundance. Back to the text. It says, but that would be in great measure. So that's what I'm talking about, all the abundance here. This is an unbelievable recovered state of mind and body. I repaired the damage from my past and made reparation for all the harms I've done my children. Now they've all grown up. They've all gone on and have careers, have families of their own. And I get to be papa to my grandchildren, all my grandchildren. And that's the stuff that I experience in abundance. And that's something you don't ever want to miss. So Back to page 85 in the third paragraph. 11, step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. So quiet contemplation, that's one of the definitions from a 1938 dictionary. I'm not going to really talk too much on meditation, but I will tell you, my prayer is about my intentions. My meditation is about my listening. And the way I do it, and you can do it whatever you want to do, Eastern meditation, Western meditation, what we do here, whatever you want to do. For me, anyways, it's sitting quietly. And it's like sitting there with my eyes closed, and as if I was outside and there was clouds overhead and they're just passing by. I just let them pass. And those are my thoughts. I just let them go. Just let them go. And I start out with 1 minute. And I go to 2 minutes after a week or two. Then I go to 3 minutes. And I just try and amp it up. I've heard speakers say they do 45 in the morning, 45 in the night. Okay, I'm not closing my mind off to that. I have never approached even close to that before, but I'm willing to when I retire for sure, but maybe God want me to do it before that. We'll see what happens. So back to the text. Better men, then we are using it constantly. Oh, wait a second. There's that word constantly. Prayer meditation can be done constantly. Now, if you're driving the car, I do not want you meditating. Please do not meditate if you're driving a semi, RJ. I want you to pay attention to the road with that big 53-footer. You're going down the road. I know you're a great driver, but if you meditate and close your eyes, that would be a really bad idea. And I love you too much. I don't want anything to happen to you. But we can pray constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude. Proper attitude is the prayer. Will I pray? Do I need to pray? Do I desperately need God? Do I desperately need the directions out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is another question. Do I desperately need that today? Or can I, if I form some, I mean, I'm assuming everyone's here for a Big Book study. You want to learn more about the Big Book the same way as I do. I want to be a practitioner of this stuff. I want to be a teacher of this stuff, but I certainly, more than all those other two things, I want to be a student of this stuff. That's why I study with Howard. That's why David and I talk about it. That's why I come to your Big Book studies. I want to learn more about this stuff here. So, and then it says, it works even if we have the proper attitude. The proper attitude is for prayer for me anyways in that sentence, and work at it. That's the 10th step. That's the 11th step. That's the disciplines. I am an undisciplined person. We let God discipline us in this way. It talks about it in the book. And then it says it would be easy to be vague about this matter. Oh, easy again. Oh, here we go. It would be easy. It would be easy for me not to do this. I don't need a cookie. I don't need a brownie. I don't need a badge. I don't need anything. I do this because I know my very life as an ex-alcoholic and drug addict depends upon my relationship with God. And not just to pick up a drink or drug. I have permanent sobriety. It's about my relationship with others, that I don't harm you anymore. I don't harm other people today. I am good with my finances today. I care about other people truly. I know how to put your welfare before mine. This does not come of me. This comes through me. This is the power of God in my life today. I am absolutely having out-of-body experiences all day long, watching God work in my life. When I can put aside my ego, which will regenerate itself. That's why I listen to speaker tapes when I drive. I do a lot of driving. We were talking about why I get up so early in the morning to avoid the traffic. But I put myself in a position to get in the right spiritual frame of mind all day long, so I can bring some usefulness, some happiness, some joy. Not excitement. Excitement is short-lived. Joy is everlasting. I want that in my life today. And then it says, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. This is not only a suggestion, this is their experience. There's many books that Bill wrote and many AA approved pieces of literature in CA that I can read to help me through on this journey. Go ahead, David.
That picture that Rob just put up, I've never seen before. That's great. Other than being in the suit, that's kind of my morning routine. The suit part doesn't happen. I'm still in my jammies, but I get up every day between about 4:30 and 5, and I spend about an hour kind of doing nothing. I say some prayers. I do a little contemplation. Think about the day. I follow some of those guidelines in the book that we're getting into here in the 11th step. I read a book. Like I've been reading AA Comes of Age. I know some people love to read the daily reflections and things like that in the morning. I can't tell you the right way to ease into your day with what your spiritual practice should be, I can just tell you what I figured out in the past, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years. Early morning is God's time. And when I make time to be with God early in the morning, I almost always have a great day. I used to wake up and rush into things. I couldn't wait. I've been working at home for, I don't know, for 15, 17 years, maybe at this point. So I just get up, have some coffee, and I would just sit down on my computer and start working. I don't do that anymore, ever. I have not for a very long time. I am at peace. I sip my coffee. I sit with a few of my dogs. Like I said, nothing clear my mind. For the love of God, do not turn on the news. For the love of God, do not get on and start reading about the election. If you were here in the US, no matter what your position is, your blood's going to boil, right? It's like the worst thing I can do. Chill, be with God, be in the moment, right? So prayer and meditation is suggested. Go figure out what works for you. When I start working with somebody new and they don't have anything, here's what I say. I say, here's a 3rd-step prayer. Here's a 7th-step prayer. I say, wake up, go sit down quietly, say these 2 prayers, and then, read the daily reflection or read part of the big book, just to get the mechanics going. And then as they start to get better, they'll figure out what works for them. It's like a little kickstart, right? And those are things that, like I said, I do too anyway. So we shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than us are doing it constantly. Abby, did we get a constantly definition? Oh, great. Tell us exactly how frequent is constantly.
So unfortunately, the definition in the 1938 isn't completely straightforward. It just says continually reoccurring, but it says see continual, and that is going on without interruption.
Oh,
continuous.
That's a perfect definition. One more time. Going on. One more time.
Going on without interruption.
So better people than we are using prayer nonstop without interruption. That's how constantly I should be praying and meditating. Again, good judgment, not when we're driving the semi-truck. Why should we be constantly praying and meditating? 2 words. It works. That's it. Bill's telling us, do this. It works. If condition, they'll tell us this thing is going to work, but I must have the proper attitude and work at it. And I know a lot of you guys love tying words and ideas and concepts together. I don't think you mentioned this, David. If we take the word attitude and we go back to 55, because I think you took us back to 13, right? So you go back to 55, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is, again, in We Agnostics, trying to turn us on to faith, that we were always worshipers, so we always had faith. But now a new kind of faith. We can only clear the ground a bit. The authors of this book, in explaining why we should have faith, we can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice. So if our words sweep away your old thinking, enables you to think honestly, we talked about honest and thorough, encourage you to search diligently within yourself. Searching diligently is searching thoroughly. Then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway, right? The road with God. With this attitude, there's the A word, you cannot fail. And what will happen? Here's the promise. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. Think about this paragraph with what we're talking about over here. We just introduced the concept of the 6th sense, the God consciousness. This came into play, as we said, all of this started back in We Agnostics. So if I have the proper attitude that was introduced on 55, then I'm going to get results. And it would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. In the next paragraph that we're going to get into, it's going to have some of those. We'll save it for next week's perfect timing. But some of these can be, so that's the evening practice, and then it's going to give us the on awakening practice with some stuff to do in the morning. And just a little tidbit to fill one more quick minute here before we wrap up. People want to know, Why do we have the retire at night paragraph and then on awakening? Why isn't it the other way around? Why don't we have the awakening first and then the retire at night? Because in the original manuscript, there was no evening review. It was only on awakening. And before they published that first edition, they chopped it up. And our dear friend Paige talks about this a lot. She says, if you're like dead at night and you can't think and you can't do your retire at night, okay, do it in the morning for the love of all that's holy. Just do. You know, I'm not going to debate this. If I'm working with someone and they're like, I'm just one of those people, I'm switched off, I'm not putting my best foot forward, but I promise you I'm going to bring it in the mornings, and then they bring it in the morning, great, awesome. Because what are most people doing? Nada. Most people aren't even doing 11. So I'll be very open-minded as long as the effort, the motive is pure, and the approach is thorough and honest. Parting thoughts, David?
Well, I can just say, with this attitude, you cannot fail. But in God's world, that is limitless. In my world, there's limits. That's it.
See you guys next week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.